kind of funny car, right?
I started much earlier than usual from Seattle this year. Usually I start 7 hours behind. I started 4 hours behind this year. It wasn't bad at all. I want to start by thanking American Express and the Canadian Club for making these facilities available to us. I want to assure you that the fact that I have the awards in a shopping bag is only to make people feel better about the fact that we came to this nice place in jeans, and I thought it was appropriate. We also have a representative here from our sponsor, from the Interrail Tire Company, Dick Bauer, and I'd like to first thank Dick and Fred Zosely Interrail and all the people along the way, the tire dealers in Anchorage, the tire distributor in Seattle who rushed us some tires for our control cars at the last minute, the ones in Anchorage who fixed us up with tires for our new control crew on Saturday morning. For our new control car, the one we bought in Anchorage after we left the stop there on Saturday morning, so they could catch up with us. And to note that the Dempster Highway, for instance, has a reputation for eating tires. I passed off to the people who were going up there a copy of the milepost, a survey they did, kind of an addendum to the milepost from a trip done in June or July this summer. And they noted that of all the cars on the highway, those 3 days or 4 days, whatever it took them to drive all the way to Inuvik and back, there was an average of 1 or 2 flat tires per vehicle. No vehicle they talked to on that highway went without one flat. And we had 3 competing cars that made the entire 900-mile round trip without a single flat. So I think that says something. Certainly we had a few flats, but they were well deserved, as those who noticed the new rocks throwing out of the road this year can attest. And I'd like Dick to step up and be recognized and say a few words on Interrail's behalf.
Thank you, Jerry. You guys and girls are a rare breed, I think. I think a lot of people sit around their living rooms reading Car and Driver and Road and Track and Auto Week and say, boy, would I like to do that. And they talk about it and they scheme and they plan, and there's only 21 of you that showed up here, 21 teams, and I hope that you all feel as proud of your achievement as we do at Interrail, because there's an awful lot of conversation that goes on in this world about people who would like to do things, and gee, wouldn't it be nice if, and if. And of course, if, as we all know, is the big word in motorsports. We couldn't have this sport if there weren't ifs in it. And I think you, as a group, are the ones that overcome the ifs and get your cars ready and get all your vacations straight and sneak out of work and abandon your wives and children and husbands and girlfriends and actually come up and run something like this. And I hope that you all feel the pride of achievement that you should, because I think there are an awful lot of people that envy you that are sitting home now and that will be reading about the results of this event and wish they'd been here. But you're the ones that are here. And on behalf of Uniroyal, I would like to thank you all very much for participating, for using our tires. And I understand from talking to most of the competitors that there were no outrageous tire problems. We try to build good tires, and we will continue to do that. And I hope that you will all be back next year. And I hope that we can do a better job of promoting this event so that we get more money and more sponsor dollars and more money in the purse, and certainly some more competitors for you to run against, because anybody else that comes into this rally is automatically going to be in the back half of the pack anyway, since you've all had this experience. So it's a lot better to beat 40, 50, or 100 cars than it is to beat 15 or 20. And I hope that that's what happens next year. And I certainly have enjoyed meeting most of you, and I hope that I'll have a chance to talk to some more of you before we leave. Thanks very much.
We also have, again, for the second year, but for the first time at the finish here, Brian and Liz Patterson from Glengormley, Northern Ireland. Brian and Liz are the press officers for the Circuit of Ireland rally also. That rally is something like 55 years old this year, but and it started much more like this sort of event, like the Monte Carlo rally started and so forth. It was a tour, a grand tour, more than a stage rally. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed having Brian and Liz here to do their bulletins and so forth. And I asked Brian if he'd like to say a few words. Let's see if he's got a handle on this whole thing yet. Thank you.
Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. To a certain extent, this rally for me has continued in the vein that it started, and that was something like 6 years ago. I was on a very small rally in Scotland, and I met somebody called Jerry Hines, and there was this enormous party, and everybody got out of their minds in this Scotch whisky. It was super. So it was well forgotten about, and last year, suddenly out of the blue, this guy called Jerry Hines got in touch and said, would you like to come on our rally? So we thought this was a golden opportunity. We'd never ever been to the United States or Canada, and sorry, can you not hear me? So plane tickets arrived. Over we came to Seattle, and it was such a good night in Scotland that I couldn't remember what Jerry Hines looked like. So this guy came up to us in Seattle Airport, and away we went on the Alcan 5000. And unfortunately, we had to leave at the halfway mark. And when I got home, people were asked us all about the event and what it was like, but it didn't really have a full impression. So we come back this year, and the rally has been one of mixed emotions. After the first couple of days, somebody said to me, well, if you're talking to somebody in Ireland right now, and they asked you, how did you get on in the rally? They said you would probably say something along the lines of, well, it was great rolling in the mud and working at motor cars. And it's been a rally for me this time of tremendously mixed experiences. The motor car bit was unfortunate at the start, but something that'll live with me forever was I was lying in a good 6 inches of the stickiest mud you have ever seen in your life on the Alcan highway, trying to fix a fuel pipe underneath the car. And this guy comes down the hill going the other way, driving a truck. And the truck was doing about 20 miles an hour, and it was sliding along. And he opened the door, and he stood in the running board, and and he yelled across the road, and it was just getting dark, and the sleet was starting to drive down the road, and I was getting a bit worried about the whole thing, and he said, "Welcome to the Yukon." And I thought, jeepers, what am I really getting into? But anyway, the rally went on, and I have seen things, and it's been the most beautiful experience. Your country is just something else. I've enjoyed it. I've met some very nice people, and my overriding feeling now at the end of it is that I came into rallying maybe 15, 20 years ago as a competitor, and became a dress person, and I worked in rallies all over Europe. And rallying in Europe is a very high-powered, high-pressure business. You always are under pressure because of this huge financial involvement. And somehow or another, the Uniroyal Alcan 5000 brings me back to the earlier days when rallying was for enjoyment, when people went and they helped each other, became friends, and there was a lot of comradeship. You covered a lot of ground, you were fond of motor cars, and to me that sums up the Alcan 5000. Plus, of course, the territory that you have here is just something, and there's nowhere like it in the world. I think the ladies and myself owe you all a very big debt of gratitude for being so good to us. We have tried, on the occasions when we haven't been whistling along in motor cars, and that seems to be the predominant thing. You have very little time really to do any work on the rally. We've tried to produce our sort of usual light-hearted rally news sheets, and generally we've done it when we've been tired and we haven't had a lot of time. And some of the lady crews came and spoke to me at the end of the event, and I apologised to them in person, and I would apologise now in public that perhaps you didn't like some of the things I wrote, but believe you me, it was meant purely in the spirit of this rally and light-hearted enjoyment, and I do apologise again for that. But my overall feelings of the rally are thank you very much for having us, for Liz and myself, and we'll hope we're back again next year. Thank you.
Okay, while Brian's on with the apologies, I have one to make that I'll admit to right now. We finished the... that I'll admit to. We finished the scoring about 5 minutes before the ferry hit the dock on this side this morning, and my driver wasn't in the car, so we weren't moving anyway, and I got on the CB and called to the first control crew off the ferry at 10 minutes of 9 to call the press office because for the 9 o'clock press conference and give them the first 4 or 5 finishers. Apparently in my haste to do that and working through my Lotus spreadsheet to delete the worst control of the second half, I deleted the Skoda's worst last score of the first half and deleted a 5 instead of a 3. So in actuality, right now, subject to auditing the whole thing and making sure I've done that right, we have a tie for third place between Derek Steele and Blake McGuffey in the Skoda and the Honda Accord with Blackstone, Olsen, and Goodwin. So that's really surprising. After 12 days of rallying, we can have not only 4 cars within 14 seconds of each other, but a second apart on first place and a tie for third. And really, the scores were better this year, I think, than many years. We didn't have that many people we had far more people that took consistent, reasonable penalties on controls, particularly considering the construction and the mud and the snow and all the things that were much worse this year than they've been on, not only on any of the 3 rallies we've done, but on any of the 3 course surveys I've done to lay them out. I've been driving a Dodge Colt wagon that's now made 6 round trips to Anchorage and back, and something like 129,000 miles. And if I had to do 6 round trips like this last event, it'd last about 2, I think. So all of you are to be congratulated for just finishing and for keeping your cars together. And we'll, it's just part of the vagrancies of the weather and the highway, I guess. Um, we have a couple of special awards. We're doing two traditional awards and a new one this year. One of the traditional ones is the Press On Regardless Award. Al Schmidt won that 2 years ago for going through 9 flat tires. They weren't Unirolls that year. They were special Pirelli rally tires. Last year he switched to Unirolls and had no flats that I know of. But anyway, who won that last year? Anyway, this year we're giving that award to Satch for finishing on a leash. I'm going to display one of the trophies here, and then I'm going to hang on to it and keep a list because we have to have these engraved yet with the name of the awards, which we've just made up some of course. These are, and particularly in keeping because of our next award, but these are the these are an Eskimo utensil called a hulu. You know how to use this, Satch?
Comes with its own batteries.
It's for scraping hides and whatnot. Anyway, we're having these engraved with the 1986. You might want to do a new letter roll cage or something.
To scrape the leather off your roll cage.
We're having these engraved with the name of the award and the 1986 Alcan 5000 Rally. You can hold that. Do you want to hear your speech now or after this frivolity is over?
Sing a song.
Oh, wait.
Sing a song.
Sing us a song.
Jerry Silverman.
I no longer have the song. It is no longer my property.
No, it's my property, Satch, but I brought it.
Oh,
So we'll call on you shortly.
later we'll do the song.
We're going to. There were a few songs like Satch that we didn't get printed for the show on the ferry the other night, and there were some that couldn't be printed. That's true. The ones that could, we'll send out with the final awards. We will with the final results sheet. We do have a spreadsheet, in spite of the fact you've only been seeing a bit of it at a time, that has all the control scores for all 12 days on that, and we'll give you a printout as soon as we learn how to use the sideways sheet or whatever it is for Lotus that Wayne brought along and we haven't played with this week. We have a new award this year called the Polar Bear Award for the 3 cars that successfully went to Inuvik. We don't have any award for the control car that unsuccessfully tried that, except that he's going to have the wheel that he drove 90 miles on. 105 miles, I'm sorry. The wheel that he drove 105 miles on after he turned around, lacquer coated and mounted for a perpetual trophy next year. Anyway, we want to award the Polar Bear Award to the 3 cars that made it to Inuvik and back, to Rod and Lee Sorensen, I'd like to just have them all stand up here so people can see who these. That'd be fine.
Up there.
Picture. That's right. That's right. Okay, Blackstone, Goodman, and Olson. Blackstone, Goodman, and Olson in the Honda. And Rod Hall, Jim Fricker, and their team manager, C.J. Hadley, in the Dodge Raider.
Best trip I ever took.
You weren't there either.
Ferry driver. He's still trying to fix the ferry.
After we broke it.
That's right.
We got across.
No, I think it's a special part of the event, one for no visible simple reward this year. No score, no points off your scores. Nothing but
tiebreaker.
the tiebreaker. We'll remember that for next time.
Don't worry.
For no visible reward, they chose to drive an extra 900 miles, while the rest of us drank beer in Dawson City and watched the dancing girls. And
Took garters off there. Worked on our cars.
Yeah.
Watch Richard.
I think the Raider ought to have an extra prize because it took us about 9 hours longer.
that's right. They had to fix the ferry. It's a very small ferry.
And we lost the ferry. Boy, am I suffering.
Ferry broke down with them on board.
Anyway, that was 900 miles, of which about 600 or 700 was snow. And was they say Inuvik is really a pretty big town.
We can't tell you a whole lot about it, though. You'll have to go there.
Yeah. There's been a suggestion made that the Northwest Territories Tourism Bureau might like to help sponsor a trip by us all there at some future date. So, plus that road's open all year. For those of you who didn't realize that, the difference is in the winter they don't use the ferries because the rivers are solid, of course.
Dawson, Inuvik, Prudhoe Bay, and Fairbanks.
That's true. The way they supply some of those communities in the winter, the way they supply some of those communities at all, other than flying supplies in, is to doze a truck haul road on the ice in the winter. And you can literally drive from Inuvik to Prudhoe Bay in good weather. On the ocean, sure. Anyway, congratulations on these guys. One of our other traditional awards, and Satch has won this one too for some reason. He gets around. He won this. It's called the Northern Lights Award, and Satch won this a couple of years ago for driving by the Northern Lights when all of his electrics failed. He picked a new problem this year, but that was a different car that year anyway. What's that?
There was a paper plate 2 years ago.
Well, now that we have an unlimited budget, we'll pick something up in the gift shop down below here. Anyway, the Northern Lights Award. We're giving this year to some people who thought that Seattle was as far north as they'd ever get. We'd asked them a while back, and for coming up here without a lot of preparation or really knowing what they were getting into, and not only being the most improved group in the rally in terms of learning a lot, but doing a commendable job in finishing well and trying all the things we put out in front of them. I saw them at the end of the last TSD today, where I warned people in the driver's bulletin they probably shouldn't do that because it was kind of rough. And they were 12 minutes late, but they were there. I couldn't really understand why, but they did a fantastic job, and I hope we'll see them back again. And we're going to have some of these made up for the two ladies from Oklahoma and the other one from almost from Seattle. Would you stand up? Thank you very much for coming. Okay, we have a team award too. The first team, it was a real tough combination to beat. Happens to have been the first, third, and ninth place cars. Gene Henderson, Bill Blackstone, and Rod Sorensen. Team Kamikaze. Seems to me that team's been around before. Anyway, we'll have a team award for them.
Just like last year.
How about last year's award? Last year.
You get those along with last year's results.
Forget it, eh?
Yeah. Anyway, congratulations to that group. It's always you never know when you're going to, when one of your team members is going to blow you out of the water by leaving his car in Tok or something like that. So that was a real consistent effort. We're giving dollar awards too this year. The Uniroyal has stepped up their participation from a $2,000 to a $5,000 prize fund this year, and we're awarding that through the first 8 places, and I will have checks for those amounts available right here after the award ceremonies is over. Let me announce who those places are. 8th place, Volkswagen Rabbit, Bob Daniels. Bob also deserves an award, though we haven't thought one up this year, I think, for being the first place novice. All the first seven cars have been here. They've been here previously, and I think if you asked Bob what he'd do differently next year, he'd tell you that he'd bring his pro rally car instead of his street car, and a few more spare parts. But we hope they'll come back, and I want to congratulate them for that and thank them for the efforts of their pizza sponsor for the big pizza press feed we had in Anchorage at the Sheraton. They had pizza for 30 people flown in from Chicago, and did a press lunch on Friday in Anchorage. So we want to tell them how much they appreciate that, so they can do the same thing for about 100 people next year, and we can all stuff ourselves. Yeah.
We set it up on Federal Express instead
No.
of Flying Tigers.
There goes this room.
Who's the co-driver? Jerry Seelhoff.
Gary Seelhoff, Bob Daniels and Gary Seelhoff. Jerry. Thank you.
By the way, they went the Arctic Circle too.
That's right. I'm sorry. I did overlook that. They, as our 2 control cars were turning around at about the 105 mile mark, in the snow after the one car lost his second flat tire at about 10 o'clock at night in the blizzard, Bob and Jerry flew past them in the Rabbit heading for Eagle Plains and got as far as the Arctic Circle before heading back that morning to take advantage of more drinking and gambling in Dawson, which wasn't a bad idea. And they were the only cars to do that this year. 7th place in a Porsche 944 Turbo. I don't know what possessed Jerry to bring that after trashing his 944 standard Porsche last year, but aside from wearing out a set of VF Goodrich tires fairly thoroughly, they did a fantastic job, and I want to congratulate them on their effort. What place were you last year?
11.
Okay. Thank you. 6th place in a Jeep Cherokee, Atkinson and Christensen. 5th place in a Dodge Turbo Shelby, Ron Ware and Paul Mlinar.
Tigers. They watched the tail last night.
You needed it. 4th, tied for 3rd again. The Blackstone crew in the Honda Accord and Derek and Blake in the Skoda. Tied for 3rd with 79 points. 2nd place and 1 second out of 1st. Maytag, Dorfman, and Richards. I think Ken ended up ill from all the code writing he had to do, and the tension of not only being in a real tight race and being chased in first place for the whole time, but having his leg pulled fairly hard by Grimshaw and Buffum along the way. Anyway, Ken wasn't feeling well, and he and his wife headed home. He has a summer place 30-40 miles from here. And does S want to say anything
I hope you survive.
on their behalf? Okay.
Visiting, make sure he feels well.
Okay. Richards is a local rallyist from Seattle who has been around for longer than most of us, including myself. And we fixed him up with Ken about, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago. He met Ken for the first time, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah, about a month ago. He met Ken for the first time about a week before the rally. But they seem to have got along well and done extremely well. Congratulations.
I'd like to say probably one of the most exciting part of the rallies for me was rooming with Richard Hughes. Quite an experience, especially in Dawson City. I had a little backstage scene on that one. I'd like to thank Jerry for getting me hooked up with Ken Maytag. I think we had a really good team, and we all worked together really well, particularly for the first time. And congratulations also to Gene and Mike. Really great rally. Thanks.
Okay. And in first place, their second year out here, and a real consistent effort for a couple of years on their behalf, on their part, both with one lap and with this. They seem to have been just out of the running every time, and pulled it off this year with a real consistent effort and not giving up. Their scores just got better and better toward the end when the going got tougher. Actually, the other fact is that Ken and his crew actually lost the rally on the same corner that Dan Goodwin did 2 years ago. The last 90-degree right on the TSD down towards Alberni, which we persist in putting the timing line for that control at the exit of the corner, because everybody usually misses it and has to back up. And after having Maytags had a high score of 2, I think, except for a 14 they took when they got held up by a truck, and 8 seconds they took by missing that corner. Now, Dan took a lot more than that, missing it a few years ago in my Colt Rent-A-Racer, but that's... Yeah, I guess it showed. We didn't do that. I really thought they'd make it this year. I tried to make it a little clearer. Dan figured it out right away. He knew which corner we were talking about when we said 90 degrees.
Is that white Audi out there?
We gave him a break and flashed our lights at the people who started on up the wrong road.
Hey, that's not fair.
Well, it wasn't dark 2 years ago. I figured you could see the corner, Dan.
Besides, Danny, they were laughing so hard 2 years ago they couldn't signal you.
They were too. That was bad. That's when he went out and turned around.
That's right. The disappointing part was 2 years ago. We had every bit of that on videotape. I understand Dan had that played for him 7 times at the PCA meeting in Anchorage. 10 out of 10.
So now I notice the corner.
That's right.
Jerry, he told me last night on the ferry, Blackstone, if you miss this corner, I'm getting out of the car. Hitchhike, you know.
Now, I'm not saying everybody made it with ease. There were some spectacular driving styles. Fall and run. But there were probably 4 cars that had to back up for it. One of them was really, they hesitated about 3 times. I flashed the lights and they'd start up the road again, and I'd flash the lights, and they were a good 30 seconds getting turned around. I'm not going to tell who that was. It's 34 seconds to be specific. The next 2 year schedules, number one, in order to avoid as much of the construction and snow and mud and muck and so forth, assuming we decide to do a 1987 event, it's going to be in August, approximately the 20th of August. Get it over with a few days before Labor Day weekend, so the school teachers among us who can come again without getting fired.
Well, he will
They told him if he leaves again, they're going to fire him.
That's right. Good point. And to separate a little bit from the winter, from the following winter, because in 1988 we plan to do this for the first time in the winter, sometime during the first 2 weeks of February. We have to work that around, number one, an off-road race that Rod Hall says they run the first weekend of February every year, which we want to avoid because he promises to come back and to bring some of his cronies with him. So the other thing we have to work around being the fur rendezvous in Anchorage, which is mid to late February. That's something that doesn't leave any rooms in town when it hits, I think. And of course the Olympics, which are February 13th, starting in Calgary. And our initial plan, subject to looking at these other schedules, is to start the rally about the 3rd or the 4th of February and finish on the 12th near Calgary. Right now we're leaning toward the Banff Springs Hotel, for those of you who've been to that place or seen it. And we figure to have the last night on the way there in Jasper. So we can do the last day in the daylight down the Icefields Parkway this year, for all of those of you who only got to see that at night. So I'd appreciate, we intended to pass out some questionnaires, but I'd really appreciate having people's comments on what they think of ideas for doing it in the future. I know that Satch and Gene, a lot of people seem to think we have rubber miles in this event, and I don't think they've really gotten the true the perspective on that. The Great American Race, which is the ultimate TSD challenge for serious navigators and so forth, uses a different correction factor every day to kind of make people wake up again in the morning, and they've had other ones that go to such things as a hub on an official odometer on your hub that you have to get out and check and whatnot. But the interesting thing about this, and it really struck home to me when I left. We had an extra day in Dawson City this year, so I went up and remeasured all the top of the world TSD and so forth, and realized that not only was our correction factor fairly different than it was when I did the pre-run in May, because the road was real muddy in May, and the tires didn't turn very well, and this year it was dry and hard-packed, but it was different going downhill as opposed to uphill. I decided that obviously there's no way to change that sort of thing at that late date, and it just takes a little more keeping on your toes to think all the time about what the road is doing, and whether you're driving a front-wheel drive or a rear-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive, and just what your correction factor is. And people seem to be coming up with a handful of correction factors. So it wasn't the way we intended it, but I think we'll leave it that way because it makes the whole thing a little more fun. Not that we like pulling Gene's leg. But anyway, I want to congratulate Gene and Mike for a real good, consistent, difficult job, and ask Gene if he'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
A couple of days ago, Mike was sitting over there in his reclining seat, taking it easy. He let out a big groan, and I said, "What the hell's the matter?" I thought we made a mistake. We got to go back and do something. He said, "I just realized if we finish this damn thing, this will be 2,800 miles of Jerry Hines rallies we've done in the last 2 years." 28,000. 28,000, yeah. I mean, it was worse than that. And that's a record, I would like to thank Uniroyal for supporting the event, and I'd like to especially thank the workers. We've seen about 50 of you in controls out there, and I understand there was about 65. So obviously we missed a couple here and there. But I think you didn't miss us, judging some of the scores. But we really enjoyed the event, and we'll certainly try to be back next year. And we especially enjoy the people on the rally. I think the esprit de corps and the comradeship among the people here is just unique of any place in the world. Thank you.
I don't think Richard Hughes is here. He's not here? No. Thank God. That's okay. I want to thank the workers, Yvette, and all the people that helped. And I just don't know why you do it. I don't know what Jerry gives you. He must give you something really good. I can't figure that out. Headaches and the universal uncoordinated wane time. That's what a phrase for that. I can't think of anything else. But just great people. The girls in the sable that I asked this morning, why are you here? you know, and they just do it because it's something to do, and it sure is unique. You can't have anything like this where you meet the people and see the country and just have such a great time. It's just nothing like it. So thank you very much.
I have one announcement to make before I forget it. The cars on display at the Kodak Bowl, we've had 2 people ask if they could move their cars in the mid-afternoon, and I told them that was all right. Unfortunately, the first person moved his car by getting in it and driving it off without checking in with the people who were running the site there, and they got upset about that because they have a different exit they want people to use when if it's in the middle of the day. And if anybody really needs to move your car before 10 o'clock tonight, please talk to me first or talk to somebody at the site there. They have an office in a hut outside the door, outside the gate there where we came in, and ask them how and when you should move it, because they're very conscious of both decorum and not making it look like everybody's packing up and going home, and of security and safety and so forth in terms of having cars driven around the grounds where there's people walking around and so forth. We've also asked them if they would be interested in having a couple of cars set up for a few days here. I know there's 3 or 4 people who are planning on staying around for a while here to do the expo. And they are going, I don't believe they have any commitments for that part of the bowl. And if we can set up, they're going to let me know later this afternoon if we can set up a display for the next couple of days here to include the motorhome, which is staying for a few days, and a couple of other rally cars. So please talk to me if you'd be interested in doing that, and we'll go around one more time and make sure all your urinal decals are in place. Then we'll let you stick around and do that. That obviously would also get you exhibitors passes for the next few days to get around the site. Now, if you haven't noticed, the exhibitors passes give you access to the employee tram that goes around the back of the site here. Little carts drawn by post office vehicles and trucks and a sort of funny little carts. There's also a private. And leaving the site, the Canadian Club here, you can go out the front door, or there's also a private monorail stop right out here someplace. You can't get off at this monorail stop, but you can get on here and avoid the lines and head off whatever way you want on the site. I'd also personally recommend the British Columbia exhibition or pavilion, this is the BC Pavilion, which is going to be a permanent part of the Expo site after the fair is over in a few weeks. But there is a display, the BC one, which when I was through here a few weeks ago, not only was not proud of it, was one of the really better ones I saw that has a series of 3 different things about British Columbia. And it's around the corner past the Irish bar there, and around the corner to the right. What's the Irish Rovers? That's right, the Irish Rovers have a bar right down here on the corner, which really starts swinging about 9 o'clock at night. It's standing room only. So if any of you last that long, that's it's a good idea for the late hours. Gerald Hawley, who's sitting over here, has a van down by the site there, and he can make a couple more shuttle runs after this up to the hotel if people want to get their bags up there and so forth. And it's really a short distance from here to the hotel. It's 1.9 miles from the far end of the exposition there, less than a mile from the gate down on that end. Let's see. I wanted to ask Sash to come back up here. He said that he had a few words to say. I don't know whether he has a few songs to sing, but just in case, I brought a copy of his latest effort here. We're going to publish these. Oh no.
Yeah, you wrote it yesterday. Just looked at all
We're going to publish these too.
Yes, these will get to you along with last year's results.
The official ones.
Probably just after.
I'm going to keep this short because Jerry didn't. A strange thing happened to us on our way to a cinch 3rd place this year. The oil fell out. For those of you who are wondering why we just decided to give it up before Jerry's surprise, which was the last stage, most of these are called TSD sections for time, speed, distance. The last one was called a stage because it was right out of the pro rally books. Much surprise to the Porsches. We kept trying to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. I must thank the crew of the motorhome, as usual, for saving us from the woods. And I wanted to thank the crew of the truck with all the antennas on it, which agreed to bring us out of the woods to hook up with the motorhome, which is very important because it kept us from killing them. I may break a car and be stuck in the woods and have the wolves come and pick my bones clean, but I'm not going alone if there's a checkpoint crew behind me. I mean, this is simply not going to happen. We gained a whole new experience. Most of you have towing stories to tell. Anybody who's been in rallying for a while has a towing story to tell, but my old towing stories always came from the days when I drove a car that was sort of self-contained. That is to say, the car had an engine and brakes and things, and if the battery fell out, you know, the car was still steerable, drivable, movable. That is not true anymore. Just as the people in the imitation Fiat, the green thing, the Lancia, yeah. It's called Lancia because when it hit the frost heaves, it was definitely launched. They were doing something that we used to do years ago. That is to say, every time it broke, which was about every block or so, they got out and put it together. You know, oh, hey, the timing belt has slipped a couple of teeth. We'll just sort of adjust. Oh, that's the exhaust cam. Yes, it goes right there. Okay, now we're going in. Eh? And off they went again. And we used to do that in the old days when I drove Saab 96s, you know, with their stone engines and so forth. Now I drive a Saab 900 Turbo SPG rally car with the Gucci roll cage. When the fuel pump packed it in Jasper, we opened the hood and somebody said, watch the fuel pump, see if it's working. And I had to say, I don't know where it is. And I don't know what it looks like if I'm looking at it. And we finally found it. It's in the fuel tank. And we ran a jumper wire to the fuel pump in the fuel tank and plugged it into an accessory jack in the dashboard, and we ran that way until we got to Anchorage, where they fixed it, until the first TSD leaving Anchorage, when it packed it in again. Now, we had left the wire in place, fortunately, and so our technical services, we called on ourselves, we knew what we were doing, and so we knew that if the fuel pump packed it in again, we would simply say, my goodness, we're getting no fuel once more. What we need to do is activate the jumper wire from the fuel pump to the accessory jack in the dashboard. That's not what happened in the middle of the TSD. When the car started to slow down, I signaled my distress by saying, shit! We figured out the problem before the car came to a halt, and then we suggested the solution. Fuel thingy, fuel thingy! It became the fuel thingy, and I must remember that when we tow the car to a Saab dealer, we're going to have to explain that in order to get the car to run, you have to turn the key and insert the fuel thingy before the car will run. But we learned a few things about being on the end of a tow rope in a car that is absolutely dependent on the engine running for it to work. First of all, no brakes. Now, no brakes is no problem, right? I mean, we can always get down the mountain. Gravity will take care of that. But when we are behind the motorhome on a very short string, and I guarantee you when you are behind the motorhome, any string is a very short string. We started with one, maybe 15 feet long. We ended up with three. By the time we got here this morning, it was only 15 feet long. They look at you funny when you are being towed aboard a BC ferry. I want to tell you that. And they want to say things to you. You know, they come up and rap on the window, which will not roll down because you have no electricity. Because you've been on the damn brakes all night, burning out the battery with the brake lights. And so you can't roll on the window to say anything to them. You can't lock the doors because they're all electric. You can't adjust the mirrors because they're electric, and you can't defrost the rear window anyway. And of course the brakes are dependent on engine power, as is everything else in the car. I'm not sure I like the new technology, and I must give all credit where credit is due to everyone else for getting me and the car here. For those of you who are curious, there's a big hole in the oil part of the engine, and the oil, through the benefit of gravity, has left. We will... I have to apologize if I'm not on top form. I'm on medication, as you know, If I take the medication, I'm as you saw me yesterday. If I fail to take the medication, in case I want to stay up all night to do something, then it leaves me a little disjointed the next day, and that's what you see. Also, you do realize that I am sick. Anyone who goes on this rally is sick by definition, and I thought that's what all I would have to tell the school board. But they may need some further explanations. So, we will be here again, assuming that they have this thing in summer and a few other changes are made to my satisfaction, so I will deign to run this rally again. I don't think we will make the winter rally because I have now been in the back seat of a Saab 900 SPG Turbo, which I'm paying for, while it has done really slow, lazy, 180-degree circles on the Denali Highway on the snow without hitting the rocks, but coming close enough to have me think about them. So the February rally may definitely be a no-no for me, but next August, when I can predict things, the biggest hazard we would have in August would be the Winnebagos, and they're kind of fun. Just think of them as Rocky II stuck in second gear. But if you see them on the corners, you want to stay a little farther away from them. It has been suggested that before we leave today, we do talk about Heinz Rubber Miles, and I needed to apologize because I had a little something to do with a song that someone wrote about the rubber miles on this rally, which Heinz admitted to today. You heard him. The big problem is not just that Heinz sets up these rallies with flexible miles. The big problem is that he then sells you TerraTrip odometers to deal with the problem. There are several of us who want to have a ceremonial bonfire and throw the TerraTrips onto the bonfire and perhaps ask Jerry to join them. But I thought if you had a copy of this, you could join me in one more rendition of our song from the boat. And I see you, clapping and nodding, and you don't have a copy, do you? Which leaves it up to me again. Okay, we may make it. On the strength of good Canadian beer, I may be able to make my way through this. That's sort of like military intelligence or disco music, by the way. Good Canadian beer. Oh, I hear you say, oh, you haven't been through the Kokanee, have you? Okay. You people will drink anything, you're Irish. Okay. And being Irish, you can remind me of the tune.
You know it better than we do.
Ah, I remember. Okay. Okay, I may be in the wrong key. Mine's in the car. In the state of Alaska, there's roads hard and muddy, and many the drivers been on 'em, good buddy. They drive there with glee, and they drive there with smiles, till they're snared in the nightmare of Heinz Rubber Miles. Oh, some are of Ortcom and some are of Flubber, but everyone makes a strong man weep and blubber. No matter how clever the wit and the wiles, there's naught to be done against Heinz Rubber Miles. Oh, some are by Goodrich and some Uniroyal, and some have been made from synthetics of oil. They trick you, they trap you, seduce and beguile, for such is the lure of the Heinz Rubber Mile. Well, they stretch and they shrink and they're short and they're lazy. They'll drive your poor navigator kind of crazy. He has no computer, no notebooks or files that help him to handle those Heinz Rubber Miles. When I die, it's to heaven I'll go, I well know, 'cause I've served so much time on these roads down below. All the roads there are measured and paved with smooth tiles. It's the people in hell who get Heinz Rubber Miles.
Next year, have as much fun getting home as I had getting here.
Okay, we've dragged this on. I've dragged this on long enough. I want to thank everybody for being here again. I'm sorry. Wait, yep.
Don't you have a question?
No, I just wanted
to say something.
You're right. I promised to write you down, and I didn't. Keith, would you like to talk about your videotapes? Anyway, I want to say thanks to everybody for putting up with us, and thanks particularly to C.J. Hadley, who showed up without any previous experience in rallying, and
Obviously.
her team was getting zeros too toward the zeros and lots of ones toward the end here. And, I don't know if it was she or Fricker, but they seem to have caught on. If you haven't met C.J., be sure and talk to her. She's doing a real good job of picking up on things, and I think you'll see some of her articles that she'll place for this in various publications. Thanks again.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome the musical ride of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And salute our special guest, Commissioner of the British Columbia Pavilion, Mr. Tom Russ. Now, he is accompanied by a number of the BC Pavilion staff and escorted by Corporal Jowett and Constable Willis, who are both members of the RCMP Red Surge Detail at the BC Pavilion. And their duties of patrolling Canada's early northwest, where they maintain law and order. Today, the only use for the horse by the RCMP is for ceremonial purposes, including these tours by the musical ride. Riders performing today are all regular members of the force who have volunteered for this duty for a period of 2 years, following which they'll return to a variety of police duties across Canada.